starting off here, we're going to be looking at these three parts. You should have, at this point, been looking at those three drawings right there, the base, the bearing, and the collar. What we're going to be working to is to get this assembly created in AutoCAD, bringing all three parts in, and creating the bill of materials. So this is what your finished product will look like. At this point, you should probably have your base plate already drawn, the bearing, and the collar. Okay, so if not, then you've got to go back and get those drawn before you can move on. Just start off with the collar drawing. They gave you this drawing right here. This part does not need to be a section at this point. So if you did create a section on this drawing, you can basically just make a little copy of that section, that piece right there, and then erase those section lines. And then this will turn into what type of line? No, it's not a section. Hidden, thank you. So this part's going to look like this right here. We're not going to, if you've already made this into a section, you can leave it. It's not required because there's a note that you can put on here for the chamfer that's going to cover this one right here. Yeah, and then you can put your linear dimensions on this outside. So a section's really not required for this one. But you are going to need this view for part of the drawing. So while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and rotate this guy around because that's how it's going to look like on the final assembly. The bearing, you should have an assembly drawing of this. This is, what the part looks like. Of course, you're going to have the dimensions on it. When we bring these into the assembly, you're not going to need the dimensions, so I went ahead and turned that off. And then the base plate. So the base plate looks like this. Hopefully, by this point, you have looked at the thread note that we did up here on the board, just to remind you of those diameters. Remember the 3/8. Oops, let me put that on a different layer. The 3/8 is the outside, the major diameter, and then you should have another hole that's drawn on the inside, which is 0.3299, so it's rounded up to 0.33. So you should have those two diameters to represent the outside of the thread and the inside of the thread. To properly show those on your front view, you should have two hidden lines there. Okay, so this indicates that there is a thread there, and that's what you should have on your drawing. So make sure you double check those things. That's something I will be looking for on your drawing to make sure you did complete that. So what I'm going to do here, because this is going to be a full section on the assembly drawing, I'm now going to just convert this to a section view. So with that said, these lines all turn these all turn back to object lines. Okay, and then we're going to hatch, and I'm going to go ahead and erase the thread note. For a section view, we don't show hidden lines, so we're going to just pull that out for the larger diameter, which is the 3/8 of an inch. So that's what you're going to start with, and then switching over to the section lines, you're going to just go back in here and you're going to hatch. Oops. Undo that. Let's try that again. Alright, and that's going to be our hatch. Now, looking back over on the classroom, let's go back to this drawing here. Notice that you have hatching, and they're going to be rotated in different directions. That is standard when you're using an assembly drawing with a hatch feature. You have to rotate the hatch. So looking at this, we'll keep this one on the right, but then we're going to change the bearing. We'll change that one to the left and keep the collar to the right. So that's just something I'm just keeping keeping in mind as I do that. So what I just did was I just created a section view of the base plate based off of the drawing that we had. This is what we're gonna do now. We're gonna create a block for each one of these parts. Okay, so I've already got the part named base plate. So I'm going to create a block which is going to allow me to create another drawing from within a drawing. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my insert, and there is a box here called create block. If you create a block, you can create a block inside your drawing, and you can only access that within the drawing. If you create a right block, what that does is creates another drawing separate from the one that you currently have. So the first thing that pops up is the ability to select the objects and pick a base point, and then we can name where this is going to be saved. So I'm gonna do a pick point, meaning that this is where I'm gonna insert this part in, and I'm gonna click right here for my insertion point. I'm gonna click on select objects. I'm gonna draw a window around this one, and then the next thing I'm gonna do is create my path. I already have a folder that's been created, and hopefully you do too. That's the shaft support assembly that has my 3 drawings in it, and I'm just going to call this base plate sectioned. Alright, and then I'm going to save this and hit OK, and that just created a new drawing of that part by itself. So technically I don't even need this anymore. I've got my drawing right here that I would have the dimensions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back. I'm going to copy this over to the side. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. Okay, and then I'm going to make this a block. So back to insert, go to right block, pick a point. I'm going to pick this point right here because I'm going to line this up. Select my objects and locate. This is going to be the bearing. Oops. Bearing sectioned. Save that. Hit OK. And I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to go to collar. We've already got the collar one over here. While I look at that, I know that my hatch is wrong, so let me go back and click on my hatch. Oops, we got to get the right layer. Oh, that's right. I forgot to bring this one in with a title block, so here we go. No. Oh wait, I do have section lines. I was thinking hatch. Sorry. Alright, so go back to section lines, create. Save that, and make a right block, pick a base point. This is going to probably be the insertion point, so I'm going to select objects, pick that again, locate it. This is the collar section. Alright, so I'm just copying my drawing to a new drawing, and I don't need this. So now, if I needed to go in and like look at these parts, all of these parts are saved in their own little drawing now. So I could go make a modification to this. Now, the difference between this and Inventor is that this doesn't get updated. Okay? So this, you have to go in and change. If you make a change here, it doesn't make a change on the assembly drawing. So that's why Inventor's so wonderful with building assemblies. It does update. So each one of those drawings have been created. So we're going to now bring these into a drawing. So I'm in the Model tab on a new title block. And now I'm going to just bring in each one of these pieces. So I'm going to switch over to Insert. Okay, this is the second tab over. Insert's the first command on that ribbon. Click Insert. Browse back to my desktop. Find the folder. You won't have as much to do to find all of that stuff, but there's that. So I'm going to bring in my base plate. And hit enter. There we go. So I placed that there, and now I'm going to go and pull in the other ones. Browse the bearing, open, okay. There's that part. Okay. That should not be exploded. I messed that up. That should not be exploded. I typically see my part on the screen as I'm bringing those in. I was a little concerned that I wasn't seeing that. I'm gonna bring those back in because it exploded all of those parts. I had something set up on a setting, and that's not what I'm going to want. I'm going to go back and do that real quick. So insert. We'll bring my base plate back in, and I'm going to make sure that's not exploded. I can change the scale when it brings on if I have it selected to specify. If I have that unchecked, it's just going to bring it in 1:1. I can also rotate my parts if I want to. I'm gonna unselect that, and then there's the insertion point. So I should have paid more attention to that when I was bringing those in. So I'll bring the bearing again. I did not want these parts exploded, and those you can see the settings stay to the last thing you used, and apparently I was doing something else before, and I had them. Alright, so this is just bringing all three parts in. Now, the reason I didn't want it exploded is because I now have each one of those individual, okay, and I can go back now and make some changes to these. I'm gonna stop right here so we can get this kind of going. In the future, tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll double click on these, and we'll make some modifications because we need to change some lines, trim out some things, because we're going to make this a final assembly. If you look at this piece right here, we've got some lines to erase, we've got the hardware to bring in, and we've got some lines to trim up. So this will at least get you started with the first steps on creating that assembly. Alright, so I will